All right, well, we're going to get started this afternoon recording this session. My name is Alyssa Hansen. I'm the president and CEO at Northspan, and we are the organization that helps to power the North Force program. Tonight, we are talking about personality profiles and team dynamics. So we're excited to get into this. I'm just going to briefly go over our agenda. We'll do some introductions of our team. And then we have our sponsor this evening, which is Audacity HR, and Stacy Johnson has joined us. So she'll give a good overview of her company, what they're looking at, what they do. And then also she's going to be taking over the curriculum portion, our information tonight around personality profiles and team dynamics. And then we'll jump back to me for just a quick overview on what is the Intercultural Development Inventory and the opportunity that student participants have to do that inventory, take that assessment and debrief about what it means and what that language is and just what the IDI is all about. So just so we're all in the same place, same space, we're using Zoom today, not WebEx or Teams. And in this space, we're just trying to make sure that you know how to use all the tools. If you have any issues or technical difficulties, please use that chat in the bottom right to let us know, let us help you out. We'll turn off our video if you're having some issues with bandwidth so that you have a good experience. And today with us, I'm just going to have our team introduce themselves before we hand it over to Stacy. And so if we would, Desiree, and then Kara, and then Ash. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Hi, Desiree Yorzek. I'm the Greater Northeastern Minnesota Strategy and Development Consultant for North Force. Yeah.
Kara and then Ash.
Hi, I am Kara Overland, and I am Desiree's counterpart here in the Twin Forts, as well as up the North Shore in Cook and Lake County, and then in Northwestern Wisconsin.
Thank you. And Ash.
Hello, I'm Ash Luna. I'm the operations specialist with Northspan.
Great, thank you, team. So next I'm happy to introduce Stacy Johnson. She's the founder of Audacity HR. She's going to tell you a little bit about her organization, her company, and then dive into our personality profiles and team dynamics. So I'm going to stop my share and give her the access to take over.
Okay. Just have to make a few adjustments here so I can pull Zoom back up. All right, so we are getting started tonight talking about personality profiles and team dynamics. And then we'll also talk a little bit about what I do. But first, I wanted to just take a moment to arrive at this moment together. And this is something that I started doing about a year ago for meetings when we are coming from our busy day and half of our mind might still be on what we were doing before, and half of our mind might be on our to-do list or what we have to do the next day. And we're a little bit scattered, and sometimes it's hard to be fully present. And so this is just our opportunity to take a moment and just fully arrive. And I call this a micro practice. So this is something that takes just a few moments out of your day that can be incredibly beneficial. So we'll just take a few moments together right now and get a little bit comfortable. So that might mean you want to shift around a little, roll out your shoulders, maybe little neck rolls. And then you can keep your eyes open, you can drop your gaze, whatever feels comfortable for you. And then we'll take a deep breath together. So as you inhale, feel your chest expand, your belly lift. And as you exhale, allow your jaw to soften. And inhale, let your belly expand. As you exhale, Allow any tension at your shoulders to just soften and release. And one more time together. Inhale, your belly lift, and exhale. Just bring your focus to this present moment. Everything else can wait. And then we'll return to our space together. You can blink your eyes open. And it's amazing how powerful our breath can be and how it can really be a game changer over the course of our day. And there's this really interesting research that showed that 90% of top performers are skilled in remaining calm under stress by using this really simple tool. And I bet you guessed it, it's your breath. You always have it with you. It's very portable. It can be totally under the radar. You can take a few centering breaths, and people may not even know that that's what you're doing. Complete game changer. I also wanted to take a moment to talk about the constant distractions of our day. There's different research that shows that we are interrupted with notifications on our phone, or we're looking at our phone or our computers, sometimes 150 times over the course of the day. And we think that we are being more productive by being able to multitask, doing two things at once. But research shows that, in fact, these constant interruptions actually decrease our productivity, sometimes by up to 40%. And what happens is that if you're focused in on something and you get a notification on your phone or something dings on your computer, it pulls your attention away, even if it's just for a few seconds, and then you pull your attention back to what you were doing. Over the course of the day, that creates cognitive fatigue and can actually decrease your productivity. Super interesting research and something to keep in mind, because I know that with doing so much remote learning, that there's a whole lot of temptation to let those notifications and they'll have extra screens up, and it just can really be cognitively fatiguing. And now let's talk a little bit about HR. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you tonight and to talk a little bit about what I do. So I love working with organizations, and generally we work with companies that have about, most of the time, less than 50 employees. And so they don't have in-house HR. It just doesn't make sense for them to have a dedicated HR person on staff. And so that's where we come in. So we provide that external HR expertise and support. So we're working with organizations and really aligning strategic objectives and aligning mission with HR. I think HR is so much more powerful when it's driven strategically and when it's woven into the very fabric of your mission and your core values. We really run the whole A to Z with HR, from the entire life cycle of looking at recruiting and how do you recruit, where do you recruit, especially right now we're looking at how do we get diversity and equity in our recruiting pools. We also look at hiring and how do you hire successfully? How do you make sure that you're hiring the best candidates, and that you're doing that in a way that doesn't create legal liability for your organization? We're looking at things like performance management. How can you make it actually make sense? So there's so many aspects that HR intersects with organizations, and it touches the lives of employees in such important ways. And I really think that HR needs to first and foremost capitalize on humans and treat people like they're actually human beings. But before we get into tonight's information, I wanted to spend just a little bit of time in talking about my journey in getting to where I was from when I was in college. So when I was in college, I had the opportunity to study abroad, and I went to Australia, and it like changed my life. It was incredible. So when I came back, I decided that I wanted to travel again when I was done and had finished my degree. So I finished my degree in HR, or personnel management, as we called it back in the day. And then I went to London, I was absolutely determined that I was going to work abroad. And so I got a 6-month work visa and worked over in London. And then I traveled around Europe when I was finished with my work permit. And again, it was just really an incredible opportunity and an incredible experience. And really, a lot of growth happened while I was traveling and living that independently and far, far away from my family. So returning to Minnesota, I moved to Duluth. My best friend from high school was in Duluth. And I really felt like things were going to be blue skies, smooth sailing. Here's the path ahead. I had my brand new HR degree and I had traveled. So I was kind of broke by this point. And my student loans were coming up and were like, those payments were right on the horizon for me. And so I was looking for HR jobs high and low, and I could not find a job in my field. And I was, willing to move. And so I applied for so many jobs. I can't even tell you how many positions I applied for. And I could not find a job. No one would hire me. It was so depressing and demoralizing. So during this process, I took a part-time job at a health club. So I needed to pull in some money. And so it was a part-time job working at the front desk and also giving people tours and signing up new members. And I didn't take that job because I was like, particularly interested in working at a health club, but it seemed like a really fun place to work. And of course, it's always good to be making some money and getting ready for those student loans to kick in. And so little did I know is that I would absolutely love it. And working at the gym, I had the opportunity to start teaching classes. And of course, when you just kind of show up and one day they needed somebody to start subbing. And so then I just started subbing classes and then I started teaching classes. And then I went to yoga teacher training. And now, since that date forward, I have always worked at a gym or a yoga studio or a fitness center of some sort. And I couldn't have told you back then when I was so desperately searching for a job that this little part-time job would become such an important part of my life. And so really looking at what my real course has been in life has been a little bit more like this. It's been this windy, curvy path that I didn't even know sometimes where I was headed. And yet it's amazing looking back how some of these small things that seem inconsequential can have such an important impact in my life and on my career. So let's talk a little bit about our topic for tonight with team dynamics. And this is such a fun topic. And I wanted to start on the conversation about team dynamics and tools, personality tools, by talking a little bit about teams. And Google did some research and they wanted to figure out what made their teams high performing. And so they have the opportunity to study teams and they have the opportunity, they understand analytics. And so they did a deep dive into understanding why do some of their teams outperform other teams. And incredibly, their research showed that the number one factor in team performance is psychological safety. And what that means is trust and respect. And when I read about this research, I was blown away. I expected it to be the people at Google that had the highest technical skills or the people that were the most innovative. And of course, those things mattered. But what really mattered and was the number one driver of high performing teams was the fact that they trusted each other and the fact that they had respect on that team. So it's so incredibly important when we talk about team dynamics that we can take risks with one another without feeling like we're going to get tossed under the bus, without feeling like somebody on our team is going to embarrass us or show us up in front of our peers in a way that's threatening towards us. And so building that trust is so incredibly important. And equally important for teams to feel comfortable, to feel like they have that extra space to be creative and innovative is the fact that they feel like there's respect and integrity on their team, that they feel like there's deep respect between team members. And if those two things are missing, if trust is missing and respect is missing, oftentimes those dynamics will just cycle into dysfunction. Incredibly important on our teams. And so there's some tools that we use to measure how we can build more effective teams and to learn a little bit more about how we show up in the workplace. And so I am going to talk about a couple of my favorite tools that we use to learn a little bit more about you as an employee and also to build some of those relationships in the hopes that we can build that team that is high on trust and high on respect. So in your student life at college and out in the workplace, you are connecting across teams. You are connecting sometimes with team members from different age groups, different cultures, different backgrounds, different life experiences. You may be connecting with people across the nation and perhaps even across the globe. And one of the most foundational pieces when you look at learning how to better connect is figuring out more about you. If you've been on an airplane, you've probably heard this saying of put on your own oxygen mask first. And it is so true in the workplace. The more you can discover about yourself, how you show up, some of your quirks, some of your strengths, the more powerful you're going to be, both working independently and working in a team setting. So let's dive into two of my favorite tools. So the first one I want to talk about is called Clifton Strengthsfinder. Has anyone had the opportunity to take Clifton Strengths? It is such a fun tool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Couple hands and chat box quotes. Some have not.
Excellent. Well, one thing that I find so much fun about StrengthsFinder is that, as its title suggests, it really focuses in on your strengths. And they feel like if you double down on your strengths, you're going to be that much more effective. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I get caught in that trap of looking at my weaknesses and obsessing over the things that I screwed up or that I didn't do correctly or the things that I need to constantly improve. What StrengthsFinder says is it identify what you're good at naturally and then do more of that. And of course, all of us have the things that we need to navigate around and that we need to figure out. And we're not always going to operate in our strength zone, of course. But if you focus on what you're good at and then you figure out how to navigate around those things that you're not so good at, you can just show up so much more powerfully at school and at work. And so strengths shows us that there's these different areas. There's 4 primary areas where our strengths will show up in strategic thinking, relationship building, influencing, and in executing. And so really interesting that every single person may be a combination of all of these different strengths and that you may show up and very uniquely across these 34 different areas that you have your strengths. And so, for example, when you figure out what your strengths are, you can figure out how you can bring those strengths to work and how you can also figure out like what you need in order to really optimize those strengths. And so, if you show up in connectedness, you may understand that you bring a big picture perspective, an integration of how to put things into a whole. And you may have a really considerate and accepting approach that really engages in your workplace and in the job that you do. You can also understand some of the things that you might need. So if one of your strengths is connectedness, you may want to look for a job where you have the opportunity to build bridges between different people, because that's going to resonate with something that you're already good at. And it's kind of like your juice or your jam. You also want to look for a position where you feel like you're going to be a part of something bigger than yourself. So you want to look for a mission-driven organization so that you feel like you're a part of that bigger picture. Another example is if you're a learner. So if you show up in the space of being a learner, the thing that you really find engaging is when you can learn about new things. And you may be super jazzed to learn for the sake of learning. Like sometimes it's just so invigorating and exciting for you to learn new things. And so if that is something that you find that you just naturally resonate, you're a natural learner, then when you're out there and you're looking for a career field and a job, keep that in mind, that you will need to have access to opportunities to learn and grow. And without that, you might feel stifled and you might feel that you lose interest quickly. Also, keep in mind that you might want to look at opportunities where they provide professional development. Or if you're not getting that at work, how can you find that outside of work? What's some class that you can take or some new skill that you can learn to really tap into that strength? A really fun thing also about Strengthsfinder is that they talk about being in balance and out of balance. So this is really valuable thing to learn is that when you're in balance with your strengths, you'll show up very positively. So for example, if you're an achiever and you're in balance, you have a strong work ethic. You are a go-getter and you like to move things forward. But if you start to get out of balance, you might come across as super competitive and cutthroat. And you might come across as a little bit judgmental and too focused on work and not focused enough on the other things in life that are important to you. And so this is such valuable information for you when you start to identify how you learn a little bit more about yourself, and then how do you extrapolate that into the workplace. And for workplaces, this is so valuable for teams to know how each one shows up in their strength zone, how you can tap into each other's strengths to be even stronger at doing what you do best. So the next tool I want to tackle is the disc. And this starts off with a really short video, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the disc itself.
What if people had their needs written all over them? If you knew that this person wanted more independence, and that person wanted a bit more reassurance, would it change the way you work together? Would it make your job easier? Yeah, it probably would. But that's not the real world. Or is it? Maybe if you had the right decoder, everyone's needs would be a lot more obvious. It would be clear how to work more effectively together, to be more productive, more satisfied. All you would need is a tool to help you understand where people are coming from. This is DISC, your decoder. It gives you a way to quickly understand the needs and priorities of the people around you. It describes 4 basic styles: D, I, S, and C. Here's how it works. First, everyone has a dot. That dot tells you your disc style. For instance, if you have a D, or dominant style, you probably drive toward results, insist on immediate action, and challenge the status quo. Most likely, other people with the D style share your priorities, even though you might butt heads from time to time. Different styles may find this same D approach to be blunt, intimidating, or insensitive. If you have an I, or influence style, you probably approach work with enthusiasm, enjoy collaboration, and take quick action. Others with the I style probably find your energy exciting, even if the two of you are a little too optimistic at times. Different styles may find this sort of liveliness and fast pace to be sloppy or reckless. Or you may have an S or steadiness style, which means you like to support people, maintain stability, and enjoy collaboration. People with the S style will probably appreciate your patient and easygoing nature, even if that means there's little sense of urgency. Different styles might see you as overly accommodating or indecisive. And finally, if you have a C or conscientiousness style, you probably focus on accuracy. Use your logic to challenge ideas and seek stability to ensure consistent outcomes. Others with the C style will like that you prioritize getting things right, even if the two of you can get bogged down in analysis. But for people with different styles, this cautious pace may feel dry, sapping their natural energy. Now, in the real world, it's not always that simple. Your dot can be between two styles, such as in the area between I and S, and you can have 4 or even 5 priorities. For example, in addition to collaboration, enthusiasm, and support, you might also share the priority of accuracy with your C coworkers. The point is, even though you need to recognize your own DISC style, you also need to know where the people you work with are coming from. Whether you're simply connecting with others, solving problems, or working through conflict, you'll have to stretch from time to time. And using DISC as a guide, you'll have a better sense of when and why that sort of adapting is so crucial to not only your success, but the success of everyone in your workplace.
That's a little fun little glimpse into DISC and how DISC can be so powerful in the workplace. And it's based on these different spectrums of whether you're fast-paced and outspoken, or on the opposite end of that, you might be more cautious and reflective. And then on this across axis, whether you're questioning and skeptical or accepting and warm. So when you put those two axes together, you get the DISC model. And so as the video explained, we're complex human beings. And so you may not show up completely cleanly into one, quadrant, and you may have aspects of the different quadrants in how you show up at work. And it's so powerful to understand a little bit more about how you show up so that you can better understand how you work with your coworkers and your colleagues. And when you better understand yourself, you can better understand what motivates you. You can also start to understand how you might start to butt heads with other people. So, for example, if you're up in this D quadrant and you like to take the lead and create urgency and make decisions and get things done, and you're working with someone down in this C style who likes to ensure accuracy, who likes to analyze in depth, and who likes to follow through, there might be a little bit of conflict there just in your different styles. So if you can better understand each other and how you show up, you can realize that you could actually be each other's best partner on a project, because the C person can help that D person from charging ahead and going off that cliff, full speed. And the T person can help that C person from getting caught in analysis paralysis and moving forward. So the tool can be, again, just like Strengthsfinder, so powerful for you individually and incredibly powerful for building stronger relationships at work and building stronger teams. A really nice feature also about the DISC is that it can help you understand how you show up with other people. So if you are in a different style, they may appear that like people in the I style who show up with that energy may be just too talkative, very scattered, or they may show up in that D style as just being too forceful and too dominating. So again, it just really helps you to figure out a little bit more about you and a little bit more about how to build those relationships at work. So throw in the chat box you don't even have to take the disc sometimes to feel like I kind of think I know where I'm at. Like I might show up as a D. I'm a little, I really like to get things done, or I might show up a little bit more in that C area, or I think I'm over there in that I, where I have a million different ideas and I love being around people, tons of energy. Or maybe you show up a little bit more in that S area or you love that group cohesion. And sometimes you are the glue that keeps that team moving forward. And unfortunately, I can't see the chat. It gets covered up by my slides.
We got people thinking they're D's, some CS, some C with a hint of D, D with a little C.
Awesome. And knowing a little bit more about that, and that, hey, guess what? People show up differently at work and they need different things and they have different priorities. How do you think that will help you to be a stronger and more powerful team member? If you want to share, no pressure. All right. Any questions?
I have a question for you, Stacy. So once you know this about yourself, how do you use that? How do you use that for your professional development or things like that?
Yeah, so there's a few ways that I think it can be very valuable. And one is when you're looking at it at jobs, like you're career searching and knowing what your strengths are or knowing what some of your priorities are, I think can really help you when you're looking at, what's a good fit for me? What job do I want to aspire towards? And I totally get it. Like, sometimes a job is like a job, right? I was there and I just needed a job. And so when you're in a job, then how can you take on projects that maybe are in your strength zone? Or how can you take on projects that help you to feel like you're more fulfilled or reaching some of those priorities in regards to DISC? And then looking at your trajectory, how can you tap into those strengths in your career trajectory? So if you're a learner, how can you keep learning? Or with the DISC, if you know that you're a C, and you show up in that area where you love tons of information, you love to crunch the data, like keeping in mind that you might show up and burst every balloon and rain on every parade at work. And just being cognizant of that, I think can really help you know a little bit more about yourself and understand like, oh, wow, I'm kind of I'm kind of like raining on everyone's parade in this meeting. Maybe I need to dial back and think through some of the different options without squashing, every single idea that comes my way or wanting, 10 reams of data to support that idea. Really great question. Any others?
Nothing in the chat at this time either, Stacy.
Okay, great. Well, here's my contact info. And as always, I welcome you to reach out. And I love talking about this topic. Now I will just do a stop share. And I can turn it back on over.
All right, thank you so much, Stacy. I know you're able to stay here with us for a little bit, so if anybody pops up any questions into that chat, we'll get them asked out as well. I'm just getting everything set up over here. So back over to me, and my name is Elissa Hansen, president at Northspan, again, the organization that helps to power the North Force program. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what's affectionately known as the IDI. And this is new to a lot of student populations, but colleges and workplaces are starting to use it more and more to help people understand how they're viewing themselves and how people are viewing them from a cultural perspective. And so there's kind of a lot of language in this, and we're figuring out different ways to make it a lot more tangible for people. So hopefully this helps you just get a base of what is that intercultural development inventory. Why would it be useful to me? Let's see if I can get my slides to go. There we go. So the IDI, it's theory-based. So it has a lot of background information, much like any type of college course or any type of the assessments that Stacy was actually just talking about. It's meant to be developmental. So you find yourself in a certain place on this continuum that I'll talk about in a second. And it helps you to recognize how we all move up and down that continuum throughout life. It provides really practical, in-depth information about what those components are and what that continuum is made of. And it gives you a plan to start to work on yourself. So it's very, the results that come out of it are really actionable. It applies across a wide range of cultures. In fact, if you don't speak English or it's not your first language, it does come in 17 languages as well, which can be very helpful and has a wide application. Like Stacy was saying, having some of these types of personality profiles or team dynamics can be helpful no matter what the career or where you're at in trying to do research about yourself to figure out what you might really enjoy doing later in life. It is customized as well for organizational and educational purposes. So we have the ability to use it with students and not just in the workplace, which is really cool. And like why you'd want to do it, in my perspective, is that it does have that actionable component. So I'm going to show you in just a second what that continuum is and what that means and how someone lands on it. But then what you get out of it after you've taken that assessment and you understand where you are in the continuum is a development plan. So individualized to the person and where they land on that continuum, kind of pushing them to look at what can I do now? How do I learn more about culture? What are the insights that I'm facing? What might be some of the goals and how would I tackle that? And that's not like unwieldy. It really is about how do we learn about culture through what are some books that you might want to read? What are classes that you might want to take online? How can you experience food or religion and the different components of a lot of different type of cultures? So it helps think about how to make that really tangible in a way where you can challenge yourself and continue to learn about culture. So that continuum I've talked about a few times now, this is what that looks like. And there's these 5 different components of a continuum, starting where we talk about it being mono versus moving up that continuum into inter. So monocultural versus intercultural mindset. So if you think about when you were really, really young, and you might have grown up like me in a very rural town, I didn't understand that there were a lot of difference. So starting down, we know when we're all young, we start primarily down, no matter our culture or ethnicity or how we grew up, down at that very monocultural mindset because we haven't seen difference yet. So we don't even really know it's there. So we're missing the fact that there is a difference. As we age and experience things, we might understand that and start to judge those differences. And as we age and grow and have more experiences, we might start to say, oh, those differences are interesting. And we de-emphasize the fact that there is a difference in ourselves and in people and our friends. And then we start to just understand more deeply what those differences are and what that means and how we accept that difference in each other, and that we start to feel that it has a lot of value in it. And we see why having a class with people from all over the city or the state or the country with all these different backgrounds and cultures really adds depth to what we're learning and who we're becoming. And then the farthest reach is where you really start to then bridge those cultural differences, where you start to bridge conversations around culture. And that could manifest in a lot of different ways. And as we age and go through different components of life, you move back and forth on that. So, depending on the situation that you might be in, you might be trying to de-emphasize difference in, depending on what's going around you. Or you might be in a situation where you can really have this, in-depth conversation about difference and help yourself to comprehend it better, or someone else. So it's not uncommon that depending on the situation and where we're at in life, you may also move up and down this continuum. So what the taking the IDI, doing that assessment does is helps you realize where you may see yourself on this continuum. Maybe you see yourself in that somewhere between like minimization and acceptance, but others might see you in that minimization standpoint. So it gives you two different scores where you perceive yourself and where others perceive you. And it gives you tangible ways to continue to work towards moving further on that continuum, and how to handle and manage different situations where you might feel like, I'm judging difference now because of the situation I'm in. How do I think about that and move through that and get to that point again where I'm comprehending that difference? So hopefully that gives just a kind of a high level. It's a lot of language, and so trying to just kind of break it down into why it's important. And I want to show a video that really gets at it from, from a workplace perspective. And so give me just a minute here. I want to show it to you on Google so it doesn't screw up. And weirdly, stop that share for a second. Weirdly, my Google timed out. So just give me 2 seconds. It's very strange. Come on. Here we go.
While Alyssa's pulling that up, I just wanted to put in a plug and for the IDI and the opportunity to take this tool. It's so valuable. You have to jump on it. Do it.
Do it. All right, here we go. Give me just a second. It's coming. Of course, the end of the day, my computer's a little tired as well. I want you to be able to see it. That will be helpful. All right, got it up. Now I'm sharing my screen. Share. I'm going to see if it'll still share it when I make it big. Come on. Zoom has been a good partner all day until right now. All right. Okay. Some thumbs up. You can see that screen.
Yep.
Awesome. Here we go.
How would you assess the intercultural competence of your workplace?
How is your workplace impacted by cultural diversity?
The current Intercultural Development Inventory, or IDI, developed by Dr. Mitchell Hammer, answers these types of questions as it measures 5 core mindsets and associated behaviors of intercultural competence. The Intercultural Development Continuum describes these mindsets from monocultural to intercultural, each mindset generating very different approaches for engaging diversity and creating an inclusive environment. The monocultural end of the continuum begins with denial and polarization. A denial orientation sees more observable cultural differences, but often does not notice deeper cultural patterns, for example, in conflict resolution styles. Polarization notices difference, where difference is often negatively judged from an us versus them viewpoint. One form of polarization is defense, being less critical towards one's own cultural values and practices and overly critical towards others. Another form of polarization is reversal, an overly critical view towards one's own group and an uncritical view towards the practices of other communities. Polarization mindsets value employees who can quickly be brought up to speed on how we do things around here. Denial and polarization mindsets produce an assimilationist approach to talent staffing, where diverse talent is expected to fit into the workplace, largely defined by the dominant cultural group. In the workplace, assimilation can take the form of sink or swim for new hires. Leaders with this mindset typically assume new hires can figure out how things are done in the organization, just like they did. Behaving differently from how things are done here often has negative consequences, resulting in diverse individuals often feeling ignored, uncomfortable, and experiencing a sense of bias as their contributions go unrecognized.
In the middle of the continuum is minimization, a transitional orientation between monocultural and intercultural mindsets. This mindset values commonalities but de-emphasizes difference. For dominant group members, minimization tends to lack deeper cultural self-awareness, including awareness around power and privilege.
For non-dominant group members, minimization is often a strategy to adjust to the dominant culture's values and practices. For example, a go-along to get along strategy. With a minimization mindset, leadership typically supports a universalist approach by focusing on the elimination of bias through common policies that assure equal opportunity for all. Clearly, these efforts improve cross-cultural relations, yet the universalist approach does not address how to value diversity or bridge across cultural differences. As a result, diverse perspectives and experiences are typically not fully heard. On the other end of the continuum are intercultural or global mindsets. Acceptance understands and appreciates culturally diverse perspectives and behavior, while adaptation is responsive and adaptive to difference. These mindsets create a cultural bridge model in organizations and educational institutions.
In this approach, cultural differences are integrated into the organization's DNA. Domestic and international diversity are seen as resources for multicultural team effectiveness, and cultural competence applies to everyone. The cultural bridge approach supports diversity and inclusion goals with its focus on intercultural competence building and mutual adaptation. The result is diversity feels understood, valued, and engaged in the mission and life of the organization or educational institution. The IDI, measuring and tracking the progress of intercultural competence along the intercultural development continuum.
For additional information, visit our website or
Here we go. I'm going to stop that share quick and go back to our PowerPoint. Hopefully, if things will obey. There we go. So like I was saying, some of it has a lot of big language and a lot of words. And so trying to make it just really tangible as to why you'd be interested in understanding more about the IDI and yourself, and how culture and understanding of culture can be really effective in the workplace as you're starting to look at what jobs you're interested in and the companies that you might be interested in. So as follow-up to that and our session today, I just want you to know that we're going to be sending out links. There'll be 2 separate links or 2 choices in those links where you could sign up to complete that IDI and do a debrief. There are 2 different ways to do that, and it is me that you'd be doing that with. And that there's no cost to that right now for students that are participating in the program. So wanna, like Stacy said, highly recommend to do that and just get a feel for what it even is. You can take that many times over your life, but right now would be a great time to start. And we will also be sending out an option for you to review your North Force profile and do a resume review. And you would do that with either Desiree or Kara. So really excited to be able to offer that out to everyone who is signed up to participate. And then just a quick reminder that we do have our next session coming up on Thursday next week. Oh, excuse me. And that is with our healthcare partners, employers. So we will be having St. Luke's, Essentia, and Blue Cross Blue Shield doing a presentation on the types of employees they're looking for, the internships that they have available, and your ability to have a conversation with them pretty intimately. So hopefully you'll be able to join us at noon on the 29th next week. And a big thank you to everyone for being here tonight and participating, and especially to Stacy for taking the time to share her insight and expertise with us. And we will be posting this recording out onto the website and share it with all of our employers and candidates through our North Force system. So thanks again, and everybody have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.